Good morning, everyone. My name is Astha Mehrotra, and I would like to welcome you to the webcast Effortless Data Consolidation. How to do that? We will just wait 2 more minutes for all the participants to join. Thank you. Good morning once again, and we will now start our webcast Effortless Data Consolidation. How to do that? Our today's hosts are Nicola Stotter. Nicola is responsible for the business development of primary and software-defined storage solutions at Fujitsu. He has worked as a technical consultant designing infrastructure solutions from vendors like EMC, NetApp, Nutanix, Huawei, and Fujitsu. Before he joined Fujitsu, he worked as an IT solution manager at Huawei. We have Thomas Ahrens. Thomas is a senior systems engineer at Atempo, covering the full stack from off-the-shelf applications to individual integration. He has been working at Atempo for over 15 years and drives complex projects from conception to successful delivery across a large variety of industries, ranging from enterprise to broadcast to life sciences. Throughout his professional career in the IT industry, Thomas has gained extensive experience in international deployment of IT solutions and spent multiple years in designing and operation of enterprise data protection and large-scale data transfer solutions. Now, last but not the least, we have Dr. Stefan Radake. Stefan is an experienced technical director, field CTO, and principal architect with a history of working in the computer hardware and software industry for more than 20 years. Skilled in different storage technologies, virtual and hyper converged infrastructures, data centers, and cloud transformations. Professional level skills in AWS, Azure, and GCP. Accomplished many technical certifications such as AWS Solution Architect Professional, Microsoft Azure Solution Architect Expert, and others. Stefan is also an author of many tech articles, white papers, video tutorials, blogs, and regular speaker on international conferences. Strong information technology professional with a diploma, integration and doctor engineering degree focused in information technology from University Bremen, Germany. After the short introduction about our speakers for today, I would also like to share some useful information for this session. You all can place your questions on the chat area on the side panel of the webinar. We would also like to ask for your feedback on the session, so a small survey will come up in the end of the webinar. Sharing your thoughts on the session is the best way we have to listen to your suggestions and to improve. Also, in this survey, feel free to suggest any other webinar topics you find relevant. Now, before moving ahead with our speakers, I will be launching some polls. Request you all to kindly participate in the same. Thank you. I'm launching the first poll. Please participate in the same. It will be in front of your screen. So the result of the quick poll is 83% for more structured and 17%, sorry, 83% for more unstructured and 17% for more structured.
Yeah, thanks, Aster. Next talking, so we have 80 for unstructured data, right?
Yeah. So now
Okay.
we will now proceed with Nikolai, and in the end of the session, we will open the lines for your questions. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, Nikolai. The platform is yours now.
Yeah, thanks for a great introduction. So you done that very well. So I think the participants have some imagination who's on the call. So I'm very proud to present the two colleagues that I gathered here for the call. So Thomas and Stefan will do the second and the third part. I will start with a little bit of definition. I think this is always important to define what we are talking about. So I was doing that poll before I do the explanation. I was hoping that a higher part would have deal with structured data, but you're already on 80% unstructured data management. This is already a high ratio between the both, and I can tell you if IDC is right, the portion of unstructured data will triple by the next 2 years. So by 2024, it will be the three times more than you have today. So that means 3 times more capacity. But this is just the small problem of unstructured data. So to turn back to definition, I have here catched some unstructured data types. So text files, documents, this is well known. So if you got log files, this is could be in different formats. The most famous unstructured data, I would say, is it's video files for today, all the social media stuff, all the MP4 videos, MP3 audio, emails is also unstructured. Sensor data, which you're taking from automotive sensors, where you do analysis on driving or aerodynamics, is also unstructured data, images. And so to sum it up, it's all the data which you cannot put in a table or in a database. It differs in size, it differs in formats, but this is the interesting part of IT. I would say these are the nuances in IT that IT is able to catch. Yeah? If you just collect the facts, yeah, if you do, let's say, a transcription of a meeting, you don't hear the nuances, if that was an ironic phrase. And this is what is interesting, to put out some really interesting information. So you have to catch up the nuances. And this is often unstructured data. This is often video. This is often audio files. And this is what we are talking about today, right? And emails, for example, is also an interesting example. Let's say this is semi-structured. You can have the header. This is in a structured database. Yeah, you can have the email recipient's email address. This is also structured, but if it comes to a content, this could be unstructured. There could you paste in an audio file. They can paste in a picture. This could be very wild and chaotic. So behind the structured database of emails, you have a database, or let's say a pool of unstructured data behind, which represents the contents of the emails. And yeah, these are the types what we are talking about today. So the other question is, what are the nature of unstructured data, where that comes from, which devices are producing that kind of data? So first of all, we humans produce unstructured data. So well-known and well-feared big file net, we can net use command. There you can have workspaces with tons of folders, with tons of spreadsheets and all the stuff in between. This can also have some chaotic types. It can grow very fast. It will duplicate. It is tough to organize. It's tough to keep the data strict and not duplicating. There you can see here the tasty cookie. This is also unstructured data. Every visit on a website produces that cookies. If you're fine with that, it's there for advertisement and all the stuff. Facebook and also Instagram is having tons of unstructured data in them. Then it comes to, let's say, IoT things. These are, let's say, automatically produced unstructured data. This is also well known on surveillance. You produce that types of video streams. Later on, we have a small example what can happen if you change a parameter in this video surveillance infrastructure. Then you have augmented reality, also growing area, also very interesting for let's say maintenance tasks in the field. This is a great help for the engineers which have that cool glasses on it. But it's also unstructured data. Here you can see a device from the medical healthcare. These are brutal devices. This is called a Novasec 6000. It's from Illumina. It's one of the leaders in the healthcare market for genome sequencing. And they can do 20 billions of sequences in one day. This was not, let's say, imaginable 20 years ago. A human genome analysis could take months. Today, it's possible to have a whole genome sequencing in one day. So you can imagine the TXT or fast BQL files, which is coming out of the device is a raw mass on unstructured data getting on your machines. And here on the lower level, you see exchange. I already explained this. This is more or less semi-structured data. You have milestone. This is in VMS and video management system. Also, you have Premiere. This is a Adobe cutting software, also producing that kind of streams where you have to cut and rendering and then recut, and all the stuff you're doing there is also unstructured. Here, Splunk, Aqua Healthcare is also producing that, let's say, 3D X-ray pictures from your medical record. And Nuix is also a famous application which is analyzing that stuff. Unstructured data, putting in a new format, trying to understand what is in it. It is often used in terms of crime investigation. And yeah, these are all applications, humans, sensors, and to sum it up, they will produce a mass of unstructured data. They do it automatically or manually, doesn't matter. And these are the things that are producing that kind of unstructured data. The characteristic is, because it is unstructured, it's very hard to control. I'll put you one example from the video surveillance. Here you can see let's say the history of video surveillance. They started with SD. This was a standard definition format, was very slow, not so good resolution. You can see it here on the right side. The man with the, let's say, with a plate in front of it is 50 meters distance. And then comes the 1080p resolution, almost better. If you imagine you're working in a transportation area, the cars which are driving in, you cannot really recognize the plate with full HD. It's not enough. If the guy is 50 meters away, you cannot organize your flow of goods and so on. And if you just turn from a full HD right to 4K UHD, so ultra high definition, it will produce not the double amount of it. It will produce 4 times capacity. If you just turn on the resolution on your cameras, it will produce the 4 times bigger bandwidth, and even more worse, it will produce 10 times more files because you have to take in 4K has a characteristic that you take it picture by picture. So this is really just for one camera. If you imagine if you put the parameter for 100 cameras, it will go from gigabyte file size to terabyte. It will be a terrible big new challenge for your infrastructure, and just turning by one parameter. Just showing you what can happen. It's more or less an explosion. It's a bomb. It's an exponential growth just on the example of surveillance. So there are also other examples from healthcare which causes an explosion of, which can cause an explosion of unstructured data. Before I tell you what the perfect consolidated and smooth world look like in unstructured data, I would hand over to my colleague Thomas from Atempo, because every ICT company is telling you and praying the ideal consolidated world, but what happens with your daily task? What's happened with your things which are going on? For example, your file organization or your standard stuff which you're doing today. And this is why I want to hand over to Thomas. But before we hand over to Thomas, I would make a poll to you. Perhaps Aster can push the poll to the audience. Yeah, it's more or less a question. What do you think is often the biggest challenge while migrating apps and data? So before we're telling you what could be perfect and consolidated in your infrastructure, we want to know, what do you think is the most hardest thing while you're migrating data from different systems, perhaps to one platform? Asta, can you start the poll before Thomas is starting his part?
I am launching the second poll then.
Perfect. Thanks.
So everyone can see on their screen.
I can see it.
Very good.
Have results in our front on our screen. Keep data available is 38%. Secure the data access 15%, data integrity 31%, to balance between migration and production performance, that is 15%.
So to answer this one, I would now hand over to Thomas. So that's your stage.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for that. So what was quite a good introduction about the kind of data or the sources of data we are facing. And so the result from the poll is slightly different from we usually see in our projects, where it's more about data integrity and about keeping data available, or getting access or keep the access to the source data while the migration is going on. But we, of course, address all these cases by using the Atempo Myria tool. And I would just do a quick outline about a way how to get from all the various sources we have seen, so like the genes, genomic sequencers, video surveillance, unstructured data from users, wherever these files are stored. We have a data management and data movement platform, and this is called Myria. And this consists of a couple of modules, and to get from the usually spread data sources to a consolidated view, we use one of them. This is our Myria for migration, but nevertheless, we have around a tool set to do analytics on the source filers, so to get an insight how your data is structured, how your data access is, or how the data is spread side by size of files, by access dates, by utilization, whatever. And we can use the data engine also for backup and archive purposes, so there might be an additional use case. But currently, at least for today, we look at how to migrate from an unstructured world, or from the zoo of unstructured platforms to a more centralized one. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, we can see again our Myria solution in the middle. And we see a lot of various platforms that are supported by the Myria solution from all various vendors, where we have tight interconnections with. And a Myriad solution typically consists of a server. We can see this in the top of the environment. And then we have a fleet of data movers that organize the data movement between all the various parts that we can see in the surrounding boxes, I would say. And the majority of data, I think, if we migrate from a platform or from the current platforms, the data is located, and we will see them somewhere on the left side. There is, for example, a native support with the Dell Isilon, with the Huawei systems, with Nutanix filers, with VAST systems, and of course also with the Cumulo filer, where we have a long-term relationship and we have a very deep integration into the Cumulo platform. And then we also support the scale-out NAS file systems, like might be GPFS or Lustre, from wherever you pick up your data that you want to centralize into a new platform. Anything else where these unstructured data could probably show up is somewhere in the cloud or in a vast amount of object storages. We can also use those as a source system and migrate them by the solution into a central platform. And how is this done from a Myriad perspective? If we go to the next slide. We have a idea, or we can see the idea behind the Myriad solution. So we connect any kind of primary storage we have seen on the previous slide. We have a Myriad engine in the middle organizing all file transfer. This one is driven by an easy to consume web interface, so the user can hook up source and destination platforms and then define a migration plan. And the solution takes care about integrity check while all the files are moved from the various source platforms to a centralized new one. There is an easy progress report. The user can, throughout the migration process, plot or chart the amount of data, the amount of objects that is handled by the solution. Of course, the user can interact or change performance requirements. So depending on the load we can put on the source platform, the users, the administrator is able to shape the traffic pattern that we use to access the platforms. And all this is very scalable and flexible, as the Myriad engine itself, a pure software solution, uses a fleet of agents, or it can use a fleet of agents. And we have seen a couple of projects where customers use a multitude of agents in parallel, and each agent is able to achieve a high throughput, and then it just multiplies by the number of data movers we have, the total amount of throughput we can achieve during a migration process. So overall, a very easy approach. So simple to deploy software. We have a central management platform. We scale according to the needs of the migration projects to reach the required time frame to swap older storage platforms to a new one. And yeah, so this leaves me to hand over, I think, to Stefan Atke, who will talk a little bit about a typical destination we see in our migration projects from the past, where we have done a lot of successful cooperations with the Myriad software, putting outdated storage platforms or migrating outdated storage platforms to a new Cumulo cluster platform.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas, and Nick for the introduction. Nick, can you move to the next slide, please?
Yeah. Should we start the poll now for the consolidated systems, or how many systems?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, it's probably
okay.
a good point in time to start the other poll. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, could you please start the
Okay,
third
I'll launch the
poll?
Yeah, I'm launching the third one.
Great.
So here we go, and we are distributing the poll in front of you, everyone.
Yeah, I see that in the preview of customer view.
So it's an easy one, right? So
Yeah, but it's an important one, I would say.
Okay. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So we have a couple of audiences with 10%, and then the majority has like more than half of the audience have 2 to 6 systems, and then there's quite a third of all visitors having more than 6 unstructured data storage systems. Okay, thank you very much for that. It's quite interesting. And yeah, maybe we can go back to the presentation. Nick has already mentioned in an earlier slide that we have a lot of data growth. These are numbers that are coming from Gartner, and they are predicted over and over again. And if you think about that, we're predicting data growth for like decades now, doubling, tripling in a couple of years. That really means it's an exponential growth. And that's also why what we see. And that's also the reason why migration is becoming more and more important. If we move to the next slide, please. You can see the involvement of, you've probably seen such a slide before, like 20 years ago, somewhat, we had scale-up systems. That market was really dominated by NetApp. They have had NAS systems. They started with NFS, came later on with SMB as well. And then later on, after 2000s, there was an idea of having a scale-out system that was dominated by Isilon. I've worked for that company as well. They first started having systems where you could, when you wanted to add storage, instead of powering up the 2 existing highly available controllers, and adding more disk shelf and creating RAID arrays and aggregates and volumes and file system links and so forth on top of them, they already saw, well, that's probably too complicated, right? If you have probably a couple of dozens of terabytes, that's okay. If you have petabytes of data, and you will see in our next slide, we have quite a number of customers who have a lot of data, then this is really too complicated. So that was the invention of a scale-out system where you added 1 node, 2 node, 3 nodes, 4 nodes, and so forth. No. So stay here, please. So, and that is the big advantage of these systems is obviously if you want to scale capacity, you add nodes, you don't care about disk drives or aggregates or RAID arrays. You just add nodes, and then the capacity is available to all users immediately without any configuration task. Really, is you add the node to the cluster, boom, that's it. And then there were the next iteration or the next step of development is systems that not only scale out, but that scale out on different hardware platforms because customers want choice. That's also a wish from many customers who say, yes, I have an appliance solution that is nice from NetApp or Isilon that comes and ships and works, but wouldn't it be nice to have a solution that works on multiple platforms so that I can pick and choose my hardware vendor of choice, but still have this appliance feeling? And that's what Cumulo delivers. So you can't install it on everything, but we have a portfolio of vendors that you can pick and choose from. And obviously Fujitsu's one very important one, a company that we work with. So you can have Fujitsu servers, and then you deploy the software and it automatically deploys more or less. The only thing, you come either with an ISO image or a USB stick, and the whole thing installs itself automatically. And then it also not only works on a couple of hardware platform, it also runs in a hybrid fashion. That means you can also run it in the public cloud, in AWS, in Azure and Google, and you can pick and choose where you want to spin up your file system. And of course, you can replicate data between them, so you can have really data both on-premise and in the cloud, or even multiple clouds. And the beauty is really you have only one single management interface. If you think of a local storage, of cloud storage, just think about the different solutions that cloud providers have, like AWS and even Microsoft and Google. It's all the same. They don't have multi-protocol solutions really. So that means they have a solution for NFS, they have a solution for SMB, they don't talk to each other. So if you wanted to use both protocols, you needed to duplicate data, which is of course not good and not really acceptable. And they have different management interfaces, they have different price levels, they have different performance levels, it's different management. So if you just wanted to have these protocols in two clouds, you have at least 4 different solutions with all these different kind of attributes like APIs, management interface, pricing levels, performance levels. And that's not really what you want, right? So you want one platform that works on-premise as well as in the cloud, and regardless where, you want the same look and feel. And that's what Cumulo provides. It's, I would say, the most modern software-based scale-out NAS and also distributed file system in the market. And that's where Thomas has said correctly, we have migrated a lot of customer to this new platform together. Can we move to the next slide, please? So the use of unstructured data is really in all industries. And I don't go over each of them here, but you know all of them, right? Media entertainment is a very, very big customer base of ours. Almost all Hollywood studios use Cumulo. Many smaller studios, there are many of them producing content for Netflix, for Amazon, for all these companies who have streaming thousands and thousands of videos around the clock, right? Yeah, so probably one other example out of the automotive industry is advanced driver assistance systems, where a typical car equipped with radar and video produces about 30 terabytes data per day that needs to be stored, that needs to be analyzed, that needs to be processed. And so the amount of data is really enormous, and you want an easy to use system regardless of where you run it. Can you move to the next slide, please? Here's just an example that we recently did for a call with some analysts, and we did some analysis of our customer base. So we typically have about 4 trillion operations in a week. That slide's about 3 months old, so probably it's a bit more today. We have about 70 clusters where customers host more than 1 billion files. And if you really think that's big, well, that becomes the norm. If you think of new applications that produce millions and hundreds and millions of files, just think about you wanted to have a platform for log consolidation. All your servers, your transactions, your audit records, they needed to be stored. It's a very simple thing, right? And you need to store them somewhere for potential analysis later on, or even real-time analysis with applications like Splunk and so forth. You have easily millions and billions of files, right? And one of the strengths of Cumulo is really that it supports these high number of files without any issues. That's why we developed Cumulo, basically, because that's the strongest weakness of all other file systems, that they don't scale with regards to number of files. They all can go pretty big in terms of capacity, but typically they struggle with number of files. And this must not be such an impressive number that you have. But if you just consider you wanted to have a directory with 100,000 files in them, you potentially know how inconvenient that is to run thousands and hundred thousands of files in a single directory. With Cumulo, it's not a big deal at all. The average file count in our customer base is 377 million files, just to say that. So 100 million files is not a big deal anymore. You get easily to it. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, just a very high level, 10,000 feet high level view of the software layers that we have in our platform. So first of all, it's a very easy architecture. Everything is just a single application, if you will. We run on top of x86 servers. The minimum number of nodes you have in a cluster is 4. The current maximum is 100. We are currently expanding that to 200. And so you can grow from whatever, like 50 terabytes. This is really where it starts. Probably 50 to 100 is where it really starts to make sense, to about 50 petabytes, rule of thumb currently. But that's growing as the number of the size of drives are growing, the number of nodes are growing, and so forth. So then we support all the NAS protocols, SMB, NFS, and current versions, SMB 2 and 3, NFS 3 and 4, FTP, Active Directory for authentication typically, as well as LDAP. And then we have a REST API, that's our main interface to the platform. And then we have a CLI as well as a web UI, and they both use the REST API. So there's nothing that you couldn't do with using the REST API for integration into other platforms, for running scripts, for implementing automation. And then we have the data services that you would expect from an enterprise storage system. That means we have an easy way for replication at a directory level, policy-based or real-time, is both possible, snapshots, quotas, auditing, and shift to AWS S3. That means you can, in the modern world, you probably have applications or use cases where you have files in your file systems as well as in object storage, typically in AWS. And yes, you can move data from within the file system. That's an integrated feature, so that you can have files living in both worlds, file access as well as object access. And then we have the file system with all the features and all the technologies. We don't have the time to go into very much detail of what the benefits are here, but if you have seen a demo, or go to YouTube, watch a demo on our real-time analytics, and you would see we really provide easy to absorb and understand real-time analytics data from within the file system. So you can really see what is going on inside the file system down to the file level that's being opened by applications and users and so forth. So it's really unique. Then below the file system level, we have what we call the scalable block store. That's where we do our transactions, where we secure the data with erasure coding. That's where we encrypt all the data. All data on Cumulo is encrypted per default. So there is no way around it. And that comes at a flat rate price, right? So you don't pay extra. You don't need self-encrypting drives, which are about 10 to 15, 50 to 20% more expensive than regular drives. So we do all that in software. And then in the lower level, you see the different platforms running on. So different bare metal options, OEMs. If you run in AWS, we are also certified for AWS Cloud, a government cloud, which is has special security requirements. We have been certified for that. We run on Outpost. There's no other real file system from AWS on Outpost. That's a great thing. We run on Google. We have at least a test version that you can run on VMware ESX. Obviously, performance is not great. Same is true for Hyper-V, but you can have the full functionality for testing. And you can go on our website in go cumulo.com/try, and then you will be able to download OVA package to install Cumulo on your VMware or Hyper-V infrastructure in 5 minutes. And then we have the Ethernet connection. That's these days, it's typically 25 or 100 gig, because all the nodes, they need to talk to each other. You can connect your clients with whatever speed you wanted to, but between all the nodes in the cluster, we need 25 or 100 gig, because these nodes are so strong, they got so strong, compute got so strong, and network, that we really need these bandwidth for communication within the cluster to be able to produce the throughput that we are able to produce. We need obviously a good network connection for that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, some of the typical pain points, I could have mentioned them in the beginning, but that's what you typically see. It could also be more or less a summary what Cumulo provides and why so many companies move to Cumulo, that at least have seen the platform, have used it, have tried it, have seen a demo. It's unpredictable for performance because we have a scale-out architecture. There's no really such thing like a bottleneck, very rarely. You see that. We scale to billions of files. It's not an issue whether it's in your whole file system or it's in a directory. We reduce backup cycles for many reasons. Together with our Tempo, we have very good integration. If you use their backup solution for incremental backups, it scales from like many hours to sometimes even minutes. And also for the opposite use case where you use Cumulo as a backup target, we reduce backup and more importantly restore cycles from backup to disk because we are very fast when it comes to throughput, specifically sequential throughput. Long rebuild times, you can forget about it. Like in a RAID array, you know, if you have a big drive failing, have a 10 terabyte drive failing, that could take days to rebuild. So to rebuild the data that was on that drive. And since we rebuild data to all other drives in the system, when one drive fails, that typically is very fast comparably. Then if inefficient handling of small files, you know that most of other file systems have really problem dealing with small files, be it capacity-wise or be it performance-wise. And we handle small files the same way we handle large files. So that means at a 4K block level. That means we also do even erasure coding with a very small file in the very same way. So there's no penalty on capacity like on other platforms. When they can't erasure code small files, they mirror them 3 times, sometimes even without telling you, and you wonder why your efficiency is not that good if you have many small files. Visibility on data usage, I talked about it. If you wanted to see our monitoring, our analytics capabilities, we don't have time in this session, but I would strongly recommend you go to YouTube, look one of these videos, or like get in contact with me or some of my colleagues or Nick, we can organize a demo for you. And we can even provide you a demo that you can run through yourself on live systems. And we don't have limited file sizes, right? There's no file size limit on our platform. Your file could be as small as whatever, a kilobyte, or it could be as large as 180 terabytes, or even larger. That there is no file size limit on our platform. So moving on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so it's not only there that we only think of ourselves that we have the best platform. If you review the most recent Gartner report on scale-out systems, that is object as well as file systems, we are at the top right, really the most right corner of the visionary scale, if you will, and in the top right for leaders. So that means it's not only us that thinks we really have a good system. And if you think like others, like IBM, Dell, Scality, they all have also object systems in the race here. So that is, we have kind of a unique position here, really, with that. Okay, moving on. I think it's my last slide. If I need to summarize why people move to Cumulo, I would probably mention these 5 things here. Scalability, so you can just add nodes when you wanted to. You can run multi-protocols, so you can access all your files with different protocols. You don't need to copy them. Cumulo translates the permission sets, whether it's from NFS to SMB or vice versa. We are currently working on S3 as a protocol as well, and we will translate all the permissions to the relevant protocol in real time. That is really very unique. Visibility, I talked about analytics a couple of times, and flexibility in terms of where you deploy it, right? And it's really easy. And that all is like built on top of simplicity, or I would say simplicity is on top of all of that. Because like whenever you deploy a Cumulo cluster, whenever you have had any other file storage system, you know what an SMB share is and what an IP address is. You don't need any training for introducing Cumulo and run Cumulo in your environment. It's really so easy. That is one of our value propositions, that we keep things simple, and that's my promise typically to customers. You don't need a training if you introduce Cumulo to your working environment. And now I hand it back to Nick. He has some examples of where we together as a team with Atempo and Fujitsu implemented Cumulo into environments. And I think Nick will run through some use cases and customers that we had together.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. So I will support you. How does it look like at customer side, and what can Cumulo and Atempo do for the customer for daily operations? So we have here a cool quote from Kim Butz. He's responsible for the Imelda Hospital IT infrastructure. And yeah, he's just saying that a doctor would never tell he's satisfied. But after we implemented Cumulo in this hospital, it's a medium-sized hospital with around 600 beds and 1,600 employees working there. They have visitations in more than 100 a day. So there is maximum of medical records that should be stored in the hospital. And he said, yeah, every doctor is happy in retrieving, for example, X-ray pictures and all the stuff. So the delivery is faster than the system before. We had the cool YouTube video produced together with the customer. So if you want to get in detail, if you're coming from the same vertical in healthcare, we're happy to organize a call with Kim and seeing how the infrastructure and how the products are working in real time. And we have also, if you need more precise information, we've done a case study for that successful project there in Belgium. It's all on the websites. So to the backgrounds, and this is really a good and shiny example what Cumulo and the consolidation of things can do for the customers. So the customer were running a standard block system together with Aqua Pax server in front of that, and he was complaining about complex operation. The retrieving was very slow, even if the storage system from the other vendor was very, very fast and was, let's say, with zero downtime. It was mirroring to another system with zero downtime things, but this was not necessary. And in the end, because you're working with Windows file service in front, it was not very fast. Even as a storage system can do much more, the file system was crappy, and then the retrieving of the pictures was very slow. So the service go down in the hospital. The doctors were complaining, say, hey, I need 30 seconds to just retrieve one medical image. That's not good. And also the IT staff was screaming. If you compare a full fiber channel storage area network compared with a flat network, as Stefan already said, the operation is very flat in another net. If you have an SMB share which holds all the records, it's very easy to reconstruct the network structure. It's very easy to rebuild. It's very easy to restore, and it's very easy to run compared to a full-blown fiber channel SAN, right? And the thing was, after we done a POC, and this is possible through Fujitsu, we have systems for you and for you as partners, and also for end customers which are here on the call. We can run a POC. We are happy to do that. We have done that many times, just with good experiences here. We were competing with another product. I can name that. That was Scality, and they compared the retrieving times between an object storage and the file storage. And because of the object transaction, which need to be translated into a file access, the Scality was slower, much slower than the access from Cumulo. They had really good experiences and said, yeah, we want that system. And yeah, then there was another point. It was not only the performance and the reaction of the system, it was also that the customer wants to have more freedom. He wants not to be so dependent on Aqua. They used Aqua Pax. IMAX is called that software, IMAX 9, I would say the version now. And they said, hey, we want to access also the pictures and the medical records, even if we don't have the PAX service in place. We want to make that a VNA access, and this is called a vendor neutral archive. And this gives the administrator more freedom. Even if the PAX servers are not running, you can access the SMB share or an FS share, doesn't matter. You're able to read the pictures out. And this is, yeah, besides the performance, was the most important point to solve. And we also solved the thing about the availability. We was producing and creating together with the Cumulo engineers. We have a script where we can do a failover between the two online clusters. As you can see here, we have two online clusters with 5 C nodes from Cumulo, and we have an archive cluster which is replicating ransomware safe medical health care. So we're also covering that one, and we can do we can do a failover between the two online systems. So to sum it up, after we replaced it, it was better performance, easier to operate, and we even solved the problem that there is no downtime if one cluster goes down, and this was 100% satisfying from the customer perspective and was a very good project from our side in the healthcare market. So what we have implemented in the last 2.5 years, where we work really tightly together with Atempo and Cumulo, we can do now, and this is already what Stefan mentioned, we can do a tech accelerator demo. This is more or less in synthetical environment, which you can which you can build up in AWS. It's very easy to use. We use it for our customer presentation and for our partner education. We go to a tech accelerator demo. There you can see the GUI and all the things which are moving in this great GUI, and it's really impressive. We can organize that for you. We have customized maintenance in the meantime, so we can offer better SLAs compared to the original SLAs, which Cumulo is offering. This is what we are specialized for. We have all our own engineers educated and maintaining the system, so we can do it very individually, depends on the customer needs or on your needs. We can offer technical workshops together with Cumulo and Atempo, so that's a good opportunity where you can catch 3 market leaders in their sections, I would say. So Atempo for migration, clearly number 1. Cumulo for NAS scale out, not mixing up with object scale out, is clearly number 1 from my perspective. So we can organize together with Anna Tanato. She's responsible for technical enablement on Cumulo side. I work very close with her, and also Stefan, if you have time, I would say he would also join the workshop. And we have POC and test systems available. We have hybrid, and even all NVMe system is newly ordered. I hope it will get on our warehouse in the next 6 weeks. And then we have also all NVMe for real performance testing. We can do that here. And to finish up our services surrounding that kind of unstructured data projects, we can do a use-scale financing. This is more or less on-demand financing, which is very good fitting to the license scheme of Cumulo. You can have 5-year plans with growth rates and so on. We can mirror that and having that in finance schemes where we can talk with you and the customers. Yeah, on the right side, there are, let's say, standard implementation and services we can do from Fujitsu. We have educated 3 people for Europe, which are circling around to do the implementation and installation. Migration services, we have also educated them on Mirya, the great tool from Atempo. We are also using that for our migration services. It's a Fujitsu service powered by the Atempo tool. but we make no secret out of that. That's fine. And we have the storage inspection service. This is a special service where we can identify, and this is the last slide. For all the things on the left side, you can just contact cumulo@fujitsu.com. If you want to do a demo, just write an email to cumulo@fujitsu.com, or if you want to have a technical workshop, it's the same address. We will connect you to the sales representative from Fujitsu. So I can just make an appeal to you to use that address. Don't be shy, just write to that common address. So here's the last slide. We can work as an umbrella for that one platform for unstructured data from end to end. So we stand for identifying your, let's say, unstructured data bombs within your infrastructure. It doesn't matter if it's in the cloud, the problem involves in the cloud, or it's an on-premise a thing, and we can analyze on different storage systems. Let's say the challenge is to get all the accesses from you as a customer. This is often hard to manage, but we have the technical ability to collect all that information from your infrastructure and make a really good plan together with you. Then comes the migration phase. This is this is in the home turf of Tempo, I would say. There we work closely with your Tempo product and Tempo support to make it smooth and riskless migration to the one consolidated system. This is what Stefan talked about, all about consolidation, simplification, because the world is complex enough. Don't make it harder. If you have 10 or 12 systems to operate, it will be a nightmare, I can promise. And in the end, then it's Fujitsu, it's making that bracket, it's closing that bracket. We can secure our data. We have specialized archiving systems. If you follow the GDPR rules, something like that, we are really experts in that. And then we have an end-to-end view for one platform for your unstructured data. And just use our experiences. We can go from A to Z here. And happy to have some questions now. If there are questions or comments, I would be happy to receive that from you. And that's all from my side. I can hand back to Aster. I think that our plan was too ambitious, Stefan and Thomas, so we have just 3 minutes, but I think it's okay.
Thank you so much, Nikolai, and thank you, Stefan and Thomas as well. That was really an informative session for all of us. Dear partners and colleagues, if you haven't already, you can now place your questions on the chat located on the right side of your screen. So let's wait for any of the questions if any of the partner or colleague has it.
Yeah, we just have the 2 minutes. We can just wait if there's some unclear points, if there's some questions or comments on that, what we focus on, or even the timing, or if you pick the right verticals for you personally. Yeah, always tough to get some reactions from the audience. We know that.
I don't think so. There are any questions, as I think the session was quite clear to everyone. So there is no question from any of the.
That's good. That's a positive interpretation. That's good. I like that. So I just can make another plea to you. If you get some questions in your mind, just use that common address that we have only for Cumulo and unstructured data stuff. Is at cumulo@fujitsu.com. Put it there. I would be happy to share then with Stefan or Thomas if there is something in it for them.
Okay, as we are not having any of the questions, so then we will finalize the session for today.
Okay, I will stop sharing now.
Yeah, and thank you from my side for having the opportunity here to present our solution, and welcome to answer any additional questions that might come up.
Well, okay. Also
Perhaps
that from my
next
So
side. Nice
yeah,
day,
so I
everyone.
would request, yeah, so I would request everyone that if in future, if you have any questions, then we all are always available through email. Thank you all for attending, and please do not forget to give us your feedback on the survey that will come up right after the webinar. We hope to see you for the next session that is about to happen in German language. Have a nice day, everyone. And thank you so much, Nikolais. Okay, we have one person saying thank you for the wonderful session. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Nicola, and thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Asta.
Thanks, Asta, for organizing that.
Okay, goodbye. See you the next week for the German session.
Yeah, I'm excited on the German session. So we change a little bit from my side.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
let's
you.
see.